We wrote the book to help other entrepreneurs, right? So we've given you the low-hanging fruit, the lessons we've learned over 30 years that have helped us become successful, and we want to share those with everybody, starting with, should you greenlight your idea? Right? There's a lot of people we talk to. We did this book because, at the end of the day, Mike and I spend a lot of time giving back to the entrepreneurial community each week, each day. And this was a way for us to do it in a kind of more scalable way and get our messages, we've written down these lessons over 30 years. So I would say to all the entrepreneurs out there, get it, read it. There's summaries, there's bullet points at the end of each chapter. And we weaved in stories to show you the crap that you're going to get into. So the second thing I would say is that you're going to realize that this is not all glory. And you have to really fall in love with shoveling shit, right? You have to really love that.
I'm Patrick J. McGinnis, and I coined the term FOMO. That's short for fear of missing out, and it's why some people end up following the crowd when they should be blazing a trail of their own. But if you want to achieve greatness in business and life, you've got to break free. Come on, I'll show you how. This is FOMO Sapiens, where we explore how entrepreneurial thinkers find the inspiration and the courage to build exceptional lives. Hey everybody, welcome back to FOMO Sapiens, the show for entrepreneurial thinkers. I'm your host, Patrick J. McGinnis. Today we are talking to Kass and Mike Lazerow, authors of the new book, Shoveling Shit, a love story about the entrepreneur's messy path to success. Now, these two are serial entrepreneurs and investors, best known as the co-founders of golf.com and Buddy Media, the leading social media marketing platform that sold to Salesforce for a cool $745 million. They've also served as angel investors in a bunch of companies and advisors to companies that include Liquid Death, which is just, that's the best company that I could think of. I love that one. All right, welcome to the show, Kass and Mike.
Thanks for having us.
Psyched to be here.
Yeah, I'm psyched too. So for listeners, these two are institutions in the New York tech ecosystem. So I've been following their adventures for many years, but we are finally meeting today. I'm having a fanboy moment. Is that cool?
So are we.
I like that. Okay.
We're in good company.
Mutual Admiration Society. So listen, I like to start my show with the same question every time. And the question is this, and I'm going to start with you, Kass.
Okay.
The question is this: what is something unexpected you learned about yourself that changed everything?
I would say it's that my anxiety is my superpower.
Ooh, tell us more.
All right. So grew up with a lot of anxiety. And over the years, especially in my 20s, I learned good coping skills. And as a result, I'm able to manage it in my personal life. And I've realized that it's actually become the superpower for me as an operator. So I think a lot. I think in lists and spreadsheets. And that's not unlike a very anxious mind and always on mind. So while it doesn't work great in my personal life, it works super well in my business life.
That's great news for anybody. There's this anxiety sort of affliction in our society. So there can be an upside, there can be a superpower. Time. That's okay. We love that. Okay, Mike, tough to beat that, but I'm going to give you a shot.
Yeah, that one's deep. For me, it's really the idea that in order to live, you kind of have to come to terms with your death. And why I say that is I have a part artificial heart. I almost died twice. I wouldn't say I had anxiety, but I had just tons of fear, and I was holding myself back as a young person. And I was worried about what other people thought. I was worried about what I was going to do when I grew up. When I was 19 and flatlined, I came out of that surgery where they basically rebuilt my heart, artificial valves and, new ventricle, all this stuff. I basically had a lightness, and that, fear and anxiety went away. And everyone I've talked to who has seen their death really started living after that. So you shouldn't have to see the death, but if you can basically say, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'm alive. you'll start making, I think, better decisions.
Patrick, that's not fair. He just threw the death card.
You knew it was coming.
I was like, please don't pick that one. Please don't pick that one.
Wow. It's such a, I mean, what I like about both your answers, and it ties so well to why you wrote this book, and from what I can tell, and it's a real service to entrepreneurs, by the way, because like people, we need these stories, is that the theme here is that like fear and anxiety, if we reorient them and we reframe them, they can actually be like the key to greatness. Because I get you. I'm like, I wouldn't say I'm a fear person. I was just grown to be very risk averse. Like I come from a small town in Maine. Like I worked in an insurance company at one point, for goodness sakes. Like I was just but then when everything blew up, I had this, and listeners know, I ended up on a heart monitor during the financial crisis. Like I lost my stock in my company, AIG fell 90%. Like I was just like, okay, so this is dumb. Like I'm not going to play this game again. I'm going to play a new game on my terms. And if I fail, at least I can just blame myself, versus like the universe kind of came after me. So yes. Okay. So let's jump in. I want to start, first of all, the golf.com story. So my understanding was that you've been dating for a couple of years and you start this company together. That's kind of unconventional. And by the way, some people would be like a little, investors might be like, oh, we're not sure. Talk about how you started this company and what you learned doing it with your partner. Start with that. I'm going to start with you, Kass.
Okay. So I had this idea to start golf.com from the urge to track my game. So I played college golf in my senior year of college. I just kind of walked onto the team and was a scrub squad player, but learned a lot. And I like to compete. I'm very, very, very competitive. And my brother and my father and I would share scores over a spreadsheet, those things back then. And I swore that my brother James was cheating every single time and like changing formulas. And I would always be in like last place in certain stats. So we created this idea to syndicate golf content, including USGA handicaps and everything, in '98. And so when I started it, Mike and I were dating. Yeah, and we were dating, and I kept saying, and obviously I had a recruiting advantage because we were living together, and I kept saying, like, Mike, I need you on this. You're the visionary. You're the actual like person who understands sales and how to monetize this. And I think it was 3 months after we started, I convinced him to leave the company that had bought his first company, UWire. And I can't imagine, Patrick, why would I pick anyone else when I knew how smart he was and still is. By the way, Mike, you are. And I knew that our skill sets were totally complementary. They did not overlap whatsoever. And that's what you really need with, co-founding relationships. You need different skill sets and implicit, complete trust.
And was this obvious to you as well, Mike? Were you like, yes, I'm in? Or did it take a little convincing?
Oh, no, I was in. I was ready. It was a great idea. This was the beginning of the internet. It was so clear that the internet was going to be huge, not just because you had E-toys and all these companies going public and being worth so much money. It was just changing, information. And coming from Northwestern journalism school, I could see the impact of like Web 1.0, which was primarily about information, commerce, right? The endless aisles shipped to your home really fast. And I just wanted to get going. I wanted to start another company. And I had this operator who was basically doing all the work. So I'm like, yes, please, let's go.
How much did you pay for golf.com, the URL, by the way?
$289,000. We bought it out of a bankruptcy hearing. It got caught up in the bankruptcy of a company called Quokka Sports, which
I remember that company.
A lot of money from NBC and Snap, and like the original Snap, which was NBC. And when it went bankrupt, the judge who was overseeing the estate put it up for sale, and we're like, yes, we had a golf venture. We were willing to go to $1 million, which at that time was a lot of money. It still is. We didn't grow up with that kind of money, but we were willing to go up because it was like 4 letters. It was rich people. It was, at that time there was no Google, right? We're talking about like Yahoo would index the internet with people, and golf.com was number one. And so we bid aggressively, we got it, and that really was that. And this guy named Tiger Woods really helped us create a nice little business, which ended up being sold to Time Warner for about $25 million.
FOMO. FOMO. So you get that exit, and you have your track record. You've now sold 2 companies, and Kass, you've come in. You've had this idea. I have to imagine you got, number one, you get some cash. So you some of that sort of like baseline, like, hey, got to pay for things bit is gone. You can take more risks. And then you also have a track record. And so people are like, okay, like these are real people. So like, how did you then, your big play so far, I'm sure there'll be more, but obviously the Buddy Media story is incredible. How did you go from, this very successful exit at 25 to the idea of like, we're going to build something really, really big that's going to basically be a category definer in social media? Like, Kass, where did that idea come from?
So this was all Mike's idea. Once we sold golf.com, they didn't need me. So, they terminated my position, but Mike had to go to, if imagine this, Time Inc. and work inside a corporate building, corporate structure for a year.
A lot of free lunches, though.
Yeah,
a lot of free lunches.
Well, but he was itching to get out, and he knew something big was happening. Yeah. And it was basically the birth of, social media. And I remember him actually being on this thing called Facebook with, at the time, if you think about it, this was like 2006, 2007, where it was just like young girls on Facebook. And I kept saying to him, this is creepy. Like, what are you doing? And he's like, no, this is going to be big. You're going to see it. You're going to see the birth of doing things together with friends. And he had the idea the day that we gave birth to our daughter, our last child, May 24th, 2007. Zuckerberg, Zuck, he announced that the platform was open to build on. And Mike turned to me like minutes after giving birth and said, oh my God, I know what we're going to do next.
Wow. And so how did you then, I guess, did you go back and use the same playbook as golf? Or like, Mike, how did you, what had you learned that kind of shaped the way that you wanted to do your next venture?
Yeah, so I think everything you do, you learn from really the mistakes more than anything. Because there's a lot of luck in these businesses. It's timing, and it's, do you get a few breaks? And one of the concepts was we wanted to pick a much bigger market. So golf is actually a small market when you take the tee times and travel out just the online golf space. And this seemed like a massive market. It was going to be the future. It was, we thought, revolutionize advertising, and we wanted to be aggressive. So we didn't write a huge business plan. We said we wanted to be in this space. We don't know what that means. We will figure it out. And we wanted to get a bunch of developers on board because it's all about building on the platform. And so we raised about $1.5 million. Howard Lindzen was our first investor, and Roger Ehrenberg and Mark Pincus and Peter Thiel, who was on the Facebook board. And we bought 2 of the leading developers, and like many businesses, we launched a few products that found no product market fit. One of them was probably the worst idea I've ever come up with, called Ace Bucks. But eventually we spoke to enough customers and companies that they said, we don't really want Ace Bucks, but we want help building on this new thing called Facebook. We pivoted into a software company, and in 3 years, we were able to grow from 0 in software revenue to about $50 million in annual recurring revenue before the exit.
I find so interesting, and I know, I'm not sure if you've kind of dug into any of this, but Peter Thiel, of course, is known as sort of like this early Facebook sort of investor. And part of the reason is because he'd studied with René Girard, the creator of mimetic theory up at Stanford, the idea that we take our social cues from others and then we want to replicate them. And that's a big driver of social media. And so it's kind of like, it's pretty amazing that you have Thiel in the mix or Thiel as it's pronounced, because you have one of the people who, was an early visionary in this space and saw where it was going. Did you guys have these conversations at all? Yeah.
So I had a bunch of those conversations, not only about that, but about globalism and, how the spread of information at the time was going to open up markets everywhere. And let's just say his mentality was very different than it is today in many ways, a lot of us. And I talked about luck earlier. We got really lucky. You know, Howard Lindzen, who started StockTwits, was the first check into Robinhood and eToro and a bunch of big companies. He had called me or emailed me years before about a golf venture. I ignored him, but eventually helped him sell that venture. He loved what we were doing. He made the introduction to Mark Pincus. Mark Pincus loved it. He made the introduction to Peter Thiel. So it was one of those moments that we did very little but stay out of our way, and got really lucky to have a Facebook board member on board as we were building exclusively at the time on Facebook. We then expanded to, this thing called now X, but Twitter it was called at the time, and YouTube and all these other social sites.
MySpace.
MySpace was at number one. So people don't realize that when I first met Zuck in Palo Alto, he only had about 20 million people on the Facebook. So it was MySpace was where the action was, but you kind of felt that like there was no utility there, right? It was like a billboard of all the shit in your.
It was weird.
Crap in your
It was
life.
a weird place.
Weird, because there's no identity, right? Like there was no like real. You didn't know who the people were. Whereas Facebook had pretty much verified identity. Because why would you ever tag someone in your picture if it wasn't you, right?
So Kass, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things in the book. For somebody who picks this book up because they're like, wow, these people are living the dream, which you are, I'm sure that there's days you wake up and you're like everybody else, you're like, ugh, but you're doing, the work of entrepreneurship yourself and also investing in others. For somebody who picks up this book, like what will they find?
So if you pick up this book, first of all, you're going to find 50 plus cheat codes. I think that's the most important message that we want to get across here, is that we wrote the book to help other entrepreneurs, right? So we've given you the low-hanging fruit, the lessons we've learned over 30 years that have helped us become successful, and we want to share those with everybody, starting with, should you greenlight your idea? Right? There's a lot of people we talk to. We did this book because, at the end of the day, Mike and I spend a lot of time giving back to the entrepreneurial community each week, each day. And this was a way for us to do it in a kind of more scalable way and get our messages, we've written down these lessons over 30 years. So I would say to all the entrepreneurs out there, get it, read it. There's summaries, there's bullet points at the end of each chapter. And we weaved in stories to show you the crap that you're going to get into. So the second thing I would say is that you're going to realize that this is not all glory. And you have to really fall in love with shoveling shit, right? You have to really love that. And if you do, you will find your purpose and passion, and it'll be very rewarding. And there'll be nothing else you'd rather do.
What is the most sort of, in your mind, counterintuitive piece of advice that you would give to an entrepreneur?
The counterintuitive advice would be know what you don't know, right? Everyone wants to, every time I meet with founders and they think they tell me they have all the answers, right? They tell me everything, they know everything, that like they just come off with this like big ego that they know it all. Those are not the ones we invest in. I want them to know what they don't know. I want them to say, listen, this is what I'm good at, and I'm going to surround myself, with a team that's going to fill in all the gaps that I don't have the expertise in.
And Mike, do you have a different answer, or will you build on that?
Well, I think the biggest mistakes that we made involved focus. And I think the concept of do less in order to get further. So focus on the right things and own those things versus you see a lot of companies that say, we have 5 revenue streams and we have all these options and we have all this like upside, but it's like, no, just become the best X and use that beachhead to then figure out what should I focus on next. There's only so much you can do no matter how big the organization, whether you're Salesforce or a 2-person startup. There's only so much you could do every day, every week, every month, every quarter, right, to create great years. So make sure you're working on the best thing, the most important thing that's going to push you toward that vision, and have goals so you know whether you succeeded. A lot of startup founders we work with, we've done over 100 investments, they can't articulate what success looks like. So before you start, say, this is what success looks like. I want 1 customer. I want 3 trial customers. I want to build the MVP, the minimum viable product. I want to hire a great AI data engineer, whatever the goal is. So when you do it, you're like, I did it. We tell ourselves stories, and those stories get us in trouble. If you have real benchmarks that you set before you start, you're going to be better at kind of keeping yourself honest as an optimistic, overly optimistic entrepreneurs we all are.
What I love about, I was just laughing to myself because this point about focus, like if you're an entrepreneur listening right now, okay, one thing that I would say is a bad idea is to say, well, here's our 3 revenue streams. And worst case scenario, we can sell the data. Nobody ever sold the data, ever, ever.
No,
not even. I don't even think Foursquare sold the data, right? Maybe they tried, maybe they did. I don't know.
The companies that sell the data crush their primary business, right? It becomes exhaust from an awesome machine you built.
FOMO. All right, so Kass and Mike, I want to talk a little bit about from a founder perspective. There's something interesting out there. It sounds like we're all folks that like kind of found our way into this world, and you work it, you network, you do the thing, and as you get more success, more doors open to you. But there's a lot of founders out there. I hear this a lot, and I don't have a good answer. That's why I'm throwing it to you because you can help me answer this question. They're trying to raise money, and they're having trouble, and then they see their competitor, who's the same, raises a big round. It turns out, well, from their college roommate at Yale or their buddy from Stanford Business School or whatever. This is a network-driven business. It's not always as meritocratic as we would like. There is plenty of meritocracy, by the way. I'm not here to say that doesn't happen because there's a ton. But there are these folks who just have a glide path. We all know that. Like when Tad, Brad, and the other Tad all went to school together, and 2 of them have a VC fund, and Tad number 3 starts something, then it's just there's that glide path. What is your advice to founders? I'll start with you, Kass. Founders who are facing that, are having trouble, and are getting frustrated. What can they do?
So I think as a founder, you have to be ready for 100 no's, right? Or more. And Mike and I have faced those no's all the time. But one of the skill sets that you also have to have is being like diligent about sharing information with the people that you got the no from. So it's not just like that relationship is dead. And you can, speaking of your term, you have FOMO, looking around and seeing everyone else raising money. You have to keep that relationship going, and you have to share all of your milestones and success. And Mike was so great at this because he literally would he would take do these epic board letters that would go obviously to the board and the investors, but then he would pare it down, take out all the, private information and confidential information, but then he would continue to share it with all the people who said no to us, so that by the time we had something really great going on, they wanted in. So that's what I would say. Mike, what would you say?
First, it's easier than ever to create a company that generates revenue right away. So the best way to fund your business is revenue. Very few companies, when you look at the 5 million businesses that were started last year, very few will raise venture capital. And the book that we are putting out, Shoveling Shit, these cheat codes work just as well for like local pizza shops as they do for real estate brokerages and retailers and nonprofits and any organization that wants to like reach new heights, right? If you just want to do the same old thing, like you don't have to worry about culture and new markets and all that stuff. But so I look at kind of like, can you figure out the customers? So get 1 or 2 on board, make them reference customers, make them development partners, investors want to see customers. And so we're in a market where you could raise money with a napkin maybe 5 years ago. It is not that market right now. Unless you're highly skilled, you've had tons of success, and you could raise from anyone, you basically have to show what you've done. And so I would put your head down, look at people, ask people for money. A lot of entrepreneurs hate asking for money.
Yeah.
We hated it when we started. And it went from like, oh, can you help me out? I'm running like this like meek, like weak pitch to, I got the best opportunity for you in the history of the world. Like, I'm giving you an opportunity to make money off my back. What do you think, right? And so if you don't believe your story, if you're not going to run through a wall, if you're not going to ask people, if you're too shy to ask people for money, it's going to be a hard slog, because there are going to be a lot more difficult discussions like, hey, you're not doing your job, you're fired, right? Like other tough decisions, like raising money should be a superpower, having that conversation for you.
Yeah, the thing too is, and you kind of hitting at this, and I like that the book is for everybody, is venture capital is a means, not an end. And yeah, it brings social proof validation, stuff like that. But like, that does not, revenue that's a much more interesting place to spend your time. So if you have some founder, like you hear founders all the time, they're rhapsodizing about their fundraising process, but not talking about their customers. You need to like turn that around, and you need to. It's just such a how many companies raise huge rounds and never get any revenue, and it's just like totally backwards.
Yeah, we tell a story about our friend Alir, who started Slice, and Slice now is a very big company. They provide all of the technology solutions to tens of thousands of local pizza shops. And there's a company called Zoom.
I know that company.
Yeah. Raised $500 million to make your pizza as it was driving to you. They couldn't keep the cheese on the pizza. And I was like, dude, with like $500 million, you could have opened, and I'm not joking, 1,500 pizza places.
Oh my God.
And crushed it. So keep it simple. Focus on what people want. People criticized us at the beginning about liquid death. Liquid death is in a huge market. Marketing a product with humor and trying to do good by getting plastic out of the oceans, and it resonated. And so like they're just providing water, teas, flavored, they have soda replacements now, into a market that wants that stuff.
But Patrick, I think you also hit on something even more. Like one of the things that entrepreneurs have to think about when they're going from 0 to 1 is customer feedback. You said no one focuses on customers, right? They just want to, think about like, oh, I just want to raise money. It's actually really a great tool if you can get some early customers on board, even if they're not paid, right? They're not paying you because you get the feedback on exactly what they're looking for.
100%. That is it's so true. So the learning that you'll get to refine your product, even if you're not making money today. And also you can go tell people, hey, we've had a client before. Somebody else has tried this thing and didn't die. Ergo, you should too.
Right. They become a referral source too. They can become your case study.
All right. So I love this. This has been amazing. And what I want to do now is move to the lightning round, which is the part where I ask you quick questions. So I will start. This is what we're going to do, because we're 3 people today, me and then the 2 of you. We're going to start. Kass is going to go first. Then we're going to go to Michael. And I got 4 questions. You guys ready to start?
Yes.
All right. First question is this. What's favorite quote?
Ship imperfect products and improve them along the way. Guy Kawasaki.
Oh, yeah. Guy's been on the show. We love him. All right. Great.
The best. Mine is very simple, and I have it written everywhere. Trust your gut. And I don't know who first said it. Probably a philosopher. But it guides my life. I'm a very gut feel guy.
I think it's Plato. I'm gonna say it's Plato. Number 2, favorite use case for ChatGPT.
I would say, I'm going to say.
Writing a book. Just kidding.
Well, no, that would be really funny. I'm going to say, this is going to sound weird, but invitation, like how do you correctly invite people to certain things? Like the mannerisms. I use it a lot for that.
Love that. By the way, everybody, these two sent a lovely handwritten note with the book, which I thought was classy AF.
Thank you.
Speaking of invitations. All right.
We love handwritten notes, and everyone should send handwritten notes.
I agree.
So for me, ChatGPT is the ultimate sales tool. And so for me, AI BDR, so AI business development, using ChatGPT to optimize different messages has transformed some of our businesses in a way that, we just couldn't have done in the past.
Yeah, I do that all the time. I ask for an NPS from a skeptical buyer. It's so, and it's great because my problem is, and this is anybody who knows me, it's like I always make it about trying to prove that I'm good enough for you versus like telling you the problem I'm going to solve for you. Do you know what I'm still trying to like me.
Exactly.
And it's that doesn't sell stuff. Okay.
But that's important. People want to work with people they like and people they trust and who have a shared vision.
This is true. Number 3, what is in your anti-portfolio as an angel investor? The biggest thing you missed out on? Where's the FOMO on your investing?
Wow. I'm going to say more of the big 3, the Facebook, Snapchat, Instagrams of the world. I think, we got looks at those. I would even say Uber, like we got looks at some of these things and we didn't do it, but I feel like we've been, validated and everything's come full circle with liquid death. So we didn't miss out on that.
Yeah.
I love that Kass said Facebook because we invested in Facebook.
No. Not in a big way though. Thanks, hun. You think I don't know that?
So for me, it was Uber. I was in a hotel room at South by Southwest with Gary Vaynerchuk, Kevin Systrom, and Travis. And Gary ended up investing in Uber. I did not. I could have. Series A. That was not a great move for future Lazerow generations. And I apologize right now for not doing that.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Sorry, guys. It's I have my own pain points. As like my next door neighbor started a company. I was like, I don't know. It's worth like $4 billion now. Whoops. Whoops. Yeah, that hurts. Good job, Sergio. Making my life hard. All right, final question. Special one for you. Kass, what's the most interesting thing you've learned from Mike? And then we'll go to you, Mike.
There's so many things. It's going to be hard to boil it down. Do I have to pick one? Just one?
Listen, you do what makes you happy. This is your this is your floor.
So what's very interesting about Mike is how he expresses his competitiveness. So he's a very calm individual. And I've always found this to be like something I didn't realize until recently, that you get him out on a pickleball court, you get him out on a sport, and it's not necessarily there. But you put him in any meeting, any time that there's a sales opportunity. I mean, I'm talking like selling back our car to a dealership, okay? And this guy's going to figure out how to win. And I've watched this over the last, 28 years, and it was like an aha moment because I couldn't figure out, and I will say this one story. We were playing pickleball in a tournament together. We don't usually play on the same team when we're playing sports. And he got really competitive and he wanted to win this tournament. And it was really nice to see that it was also being expressed outside of just business.
That is interesting. I'll tell you something. What you need to do, in my opinion, is have the sales meeting on the pickleball court, and then you're going to get
the best of both worlds.
You're going to get it, but you're going to have a pickleball moment.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. What about you?
I've learned through Kass to deal with my emotions, and feelings are okay and not to bury them and shine the turd, right? Like, if you're not feeling great, let's get it out. And I think that's helped both in business, being a better leader and investor. And I know 100% it's helped in a relationship, just being more emotionally aware and present,
Mike,
which is hard for a lot of guys.
What did you learn about me? That was the question.
Well, it was what I learned from you, if I heard it correctly.
Well, it was kind of, I mean, it is true I said from, but I like where Kass went. And so if you would like to throw in a what about, that'd be cool too, because Kass seems pretty, she might have some interesting things that you've learned.
Yeah, so what I've learned about Kass that, I mean...
Really? 28 years, hun.
There's been
TikTok.
so much. I think Kass is an introvert who also loves to make people laugh.
Yes.
And scare them like crazy. And so I think what I learned about Kass, she was very serious when we first got together, but her love of having fun at other people's expenses is very, I just love, especially when it's not me. So she used to do stuff like 1 year anniversaries, hide under people's desks. So when they got to work, she would jump out and it would all be on video. And this maybe you can't do today with HR.
No, you
stuff.
can't. That would be like, there would be like some sort of lawsuit.
But people loved it and they'd be laughing for a week about it. And so that's what I would say.
All right. That's pretty amazing. Culture building. All right. So the book is available. If you go check it out, it's out now. You go to shovelingshit.com, which, by the way, how much did that cost?
I think it was $99.
Yeah. I mean, that the fact that you got that for $99, I mean, that's incredible. I'm like I'm an online real estate speculator. Do you know what I mean? So like, I got you. So shovelingshit.com, you can find the book. And I was on the website. There's all kinds of cool stuff. So, go there. Yeah, there's a lot of good. You guys have really built a beautiful, I mean, I'm not surprised, but you've built a beautiful website. And you can find them on Instagram at Kass and Mike with a K, K-A-S-S and Mike. And of course, they're on LinkedIn. Well, they're being thought leaders, I'm sure, as everybody does over there. The book, again, is Shoveling Shit. Kass and Mike Lazerow, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
My
Appreciate
pleasure.
it.
FOMO Sapiens is recorded in New York City and can be found on YouTube at FOMO Sapiens or on your favorite podcast network. Theme music is by Mike McGinnis, editing and post-production is by Josh Elstro, and the show is produced by Matt Curtis and me. If you like today's show, please be sure to rate it and share it with your friends. And as always, you can find more about the show and me at FOMOSapiens.com and PatrickMcGinnis.com.